More than 4 decades ago, the city of Spokane was on edge.
This is not something you get over. You know, you go and you break your arm, it heals, and you're over it. No. I haven't slept for 25 years.
A serial rapist hunting women.
You didn't go out at night. It wasn't safe to even walk 3 blocks to my friend's house.
His arrest and years of court hearings notorious. The details tough to stomach as they came out in real legal time.
You know, this is going to cause a media frenzy.
Kevin Coe convicted. 25 years in prison, 17 years of involuntary commitment. Kevin Coe is up for release.
I tell you, I was petrified.
The trauma for his victims stays stark in their minds. Painful details that have not faded with the passage of time.
Something that is burned into my mind. This is my last interview. I'm done. I've done everything I could to keep people safe.
In the next half hour, we look at Coe's crimes, the consequences for his victims, family members, and Coe himself.
What Kevin Coe did to this community was horrific.
We talk to the people he targeted and the people involved in ultimately bringing him to justice.
First thing people need to understand is, what does the state have to prove?
How did we get here? Why now? And what's next? Tonight, a NonStop Local special report, the potential release of the South Hill Rapist.
Good evening, I'm Sean Alsey, and welcome to this special report, the potential release of the South Hill Rapist, Kevin Coe. It is a story, both the crimes and the legal ramifications that is interwoven in the fabric of Spokane. And the streets here on the South Hill more than 4 decades ago, you would think twice or even 3 times before stepping outside, especially after dark. That's because there was a criminal out there. And it took a while to find a prime suspect, but when they did, that's when the legal system kicked in. Spokane in the late 1970s, a city on the rise. Huge momentum here on the heels of Expo 74 and the launch of the Bloomsday Street Race. Hometown pride palpable, but darkness lingered at the edge of the light. A string of crimes that paralyzed Spokane and its residents with fear, uncertainty. Who was stalking women? On April 26, 1978, a 19-year-old woman dragged suddenly behind a row of bushes and raped. Clear in her recount, the rapist jammed his fist into her mouth to prevent her from screaming, a detail that would prove a pattern. Over the next 2 years, Spokane police reported a dramatic increase in the number of vicious sexual attacks. The hunt intensifying, the rapist elusive. In his book, Son, A Psychopath and His Victims, author Jack Olson cites Spokane police data showing in 1978, there were 49 reported rapes. In 1980, there were 127. The youngest victim, just 14 years old. The oldest, 51. 37 rapes were believed to be the result of one man's evil work, but still, no suspects, no concrete leads. In February 1981, the first ray of light for justice, a critical break for detectives. A vehicle seen near one of the rapes, linked to the managing editor of the Spokane Daily Chronicle, Gordon Coe. Police soon found that vehicle was being used by his 34-year-old son, Kevin Coe. March 10th, 1981, police arrest Kevin Coe, charge him with 1 count of rape. His arrest causing a furor. Relief of an arrest, stunning that the prime suspect came from a high-profile Spokane family. Gordon Coe took a leave of absence from the Chronicle, then retired in October of that year. Coe's mother, Ruth Coe, would become infamous in her own right later that same year. Coe was believed to be, according to authorities, responsible for up to 37 rapes, but was only ever charged with 6.
Are you the South Hill Rapist?
No.
The first trial, July of 1981. He took the stand on his own behalf, rattling on with grandiose statements, exaggerations, or outright lies about his life and accomplishments. Paranoid rants about a plot against him. Then, finally, justice for the victims.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Frederick Harlan Coe, guilty.
July 29th, Coe, guilty, 4 counts, first-degree rape. On August 17th, 1981, the sentence, life in prison.
Throw away your mace, throw away your guns. You safe girls. Ha! My son didn't do it.
The Coe family saga took an unexpected twist in November when Coe's mother, Ruth, was captured on recordings trying to pay a hitman to take out the prosecutor and judge who put her son away.
I like him gone dead, and I'd like both of them dead.
The story of the Coes, already national news, now international headlines. Ruth Coe received a year in county jail, 10 years probation. At the same time, Kevin Coe continued his legal fight from prison and did make inroads. In 1984, the Supreme Court overturned all 4 of his convictions on the grounds that witnesses and victims were compelled to remember details of the attacks using hypnosis. The evidence, they argued, could not be trusted. A new trial, a new jury, a reinvigorated Coe.
I'm not the South Hill Rapist, I'm the Spokane scapegoat.
But on February 12, 1985, Coe was convicted of 3 rapes and sentenced once again to life. In January of 1988, due to continued complications from the controversial use of hypnosis, the Supreme Court tossed 2 of those rape convictions, meaning Coe was now convicted of 1 rape. The sentence, 25 years, with the possibility of parole by 1992. But Coe did not attend his parole hearings, and so it wasn't until 2006 that the clock ran out. He had served his 25-year sentence. The 59-year-old was set to finally leave prison, but the state attorney general filed a petition to have him involuntarily committed in a post-prison treatment center, arguing Kevin Coe never sought treatment. He was a violent sex offender and was likely to rape again. Coe was transferred to McNeil Island to await his civil trial, and in 2008, a judge and a jury agreed with the AG. Coe would stay at McNeil Island until state experts said he was no longer a threat. Now, 45 years after his first arrest, at the age of 78 years old, the experts say that time has come. Those old clips, those old interviews, bring it all rushing back to the forefront. You remember it like it was yesterday, and that's not something you want in your mind. Well, it has been in the mind for decades for one of Kevin Coe's victims that says there's not a day that goes by that she doesn't think about the crime that happened to her and the person that committed it. Here's Haley Gunther.
I was in my mid-20s. I'm invincible.
And ready to explore.
Oh, gosh. I was about 23. I backpacked through Europe. I lived in Hawaii. This one is when I was done modeling.
Julie Hermia wasn't looking for love.
I was a very independent, self-sufficient person.
But in this life chapter of roaming, she found it, pulling her to the inland Northwest.
While we were looking for houses, the south side of Spokane was supposed to be one of the premier places to live. My husband mentioned to the realtor, it's supposed to be really safe. And she goes, well, normally it is, but lately we have someone called the South Hill Rapist. Goes in one ear and out the other.
And no one ever thinks it's going to happen to them.
Yeah, well, it was my turn to win the lottery.
October 1980.
Yeah, it was daylight. It was just starting to get dark.
Julie boarded a bus to head home.
I was working as a sales clerk.
The couple was still adjusting to their new space.
Hadn't even unpacked. I overshot the street.
Mere minutes into her trek.
22nd and Rebecca. That's where we were at.
She saw him.
I see this guy jogging, totally oblivious to the danger I was in.
No time for it to ever register.
All of a sudden, a hand comes around my face, and he grabs me and drags me into the field. I was pretty bruised up. Not only did he stick his hand down my throat, and he had on like driving gloves, and they had stitching on the outside. I couldn't talk hardly for a couple days.
Did he say anything to you?
Yeah. He said some crude things.
She says she was beaten and sexually assaulted. Her rapist took off and she limped to a neighbor's.
They gave me a washcloth and stuff because I was bleeding because, he pounded me, he ripped up my mouth.
The police response was swift. She recalled what she could.
I was the first one that had seen his face and remembered it.
It would take months and more rapes for police to find a name to go with that face. Kevin Coe.
When they caught him, they had him in a lineup.
With victims on the other side.
It was lined up. Chair, 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 all the way around the room of women he had assaulted.
For you, was it instant?
Yeah. And then they nailed me because I said I'm 98% sure.
Coe's defense.
How many times have you had to testify?
There was 3 trials.
Spanning decades, the first 2 criminal.
I almost collapsed trying to walk out of the courtroom.
Charges and then convictions for those sexual attacks were later tossed due to inadmissible evidence.
My case was the only one that stood after all these years.
And it was the one that put him away.
Big sigh of relief for key figures.
At least for a while.
I tell you, I was petrified when I found out that his sentence was going to be done.
Prompting trial 3.
The trauma of it, there's something that is burned into my mind.
Back in 2006, Julie spoke with us as she once again prepared to take the stand, this time for proceedings that would commit Coe to McNeil Island for sexually violent predators.
The fact that the state felt that this was important enough to spend all the man hours and do all the research and take this step further to keep this man out of public was very gratifying.
It worked, and McNeil Island has been home for Coe for nearly 20 years. But now release for good is possible. Julie's feelings then mirroring now.
I feel like the little Dutch boy with my finger in the dike.
Because I kept the monster in the cage.
And after 45 years of carrying the burden, she's giving it to someone else.
It's going to be on the state. They released him. They're the ones liable. I'm not doing this for me. I represent the 50+ women that this happened to. I represent the ones who didn't get their day in court.
It's a tremendous burden to have on your shoulders.
Well, God gave me broad shoulders.
And the strength to push through the pain.
He's such a talker. I'm a dog person.
Julie split with her first husband, but remarried.
This is our whole little family.
Her world consumed with love, purpose, and faith.
I think that's why God had it happen to me. I'm not a saint or anything, but I feel that He knew I could survive it.
Still to come on tonight's special, the potential release of the South Hill Rapist, Kevin Coe. I sit down with Judge O'Connor, who oversaw the civil commitment hearing in 2008. She pulls back the veil, her legal perspective on this case and how he ultimately ended up in McNeil Island.
The jury is entitled to know what was going on at that time.
And a WSU professor and sexual violence expert talks about the big picture and how they'll evaluate Coe at the hearing this week. That's when we come back.
The potential release of the South Hill Rapist. Coverage will continue in a moment.
Scared the heck out of you because you were just there. You caught the bus that morning and somebody was raped. It could have been you, could have been me.
That was Tricia Scott. Her emotions, you could feel them. It was the same emotions that so many of you had during Kevin Coe's crime spree here in the Spokane area. He served his sentence, convicted on 1 count of rape back in the 80s. And it wasn't until 2008 he was set to be released. But that's when a judge and a jury found him likely to reoffend, a violent predator. and he was transferred to McNeil Island. I recently caught up with a retired judge for her perspective on the case.
I've never committed a crime in my life, and I've never...
A thing that a lot of people remember at this point is not Mr. Coe's name, but the fact he was the South Hill Rapist. That's what they remember.
Fred, are you the South Hill Rapist?
No.
One of the things that, and it really came out at trial, was the tendency of the defendant, after the rape had occurred, to be very chatty with the victim. It was a very odd sort of thing. It was not necessarily making threats, because that's not all that unusual. Don't tell anybody, that's not all that unusual. It was, talking about their sexual life, talking about the family, what did they want? I mean, just chatty stuff. That was, it just was kind of odd.
You're evaluating behavior, past, the way they operated in prison serving their sentence. He never showed up for parole hearings. You allowed a psychologist to testify that Coe refused sex offender treatment while he was serving his sentence for the original rape conviction.
Yes, he did. There's, the jury is entitled to know what was going on at that time, and he would never even suggest that he wanted to enter into any kind of sexual offender treatment, because there were treatments available, but he declined.
To this day,
No, he never has, to the best of my knowledge.
No.
At the time I did the SVP, because he was in McNeil Island for a couple of years before we had the trial, and he didn't undertake it then. He didn't undertake it post-conviction, or post-finding, I should say. This isn't a criminal trial, so post-finding. And the state is required, once a sexually violent predator status is determined, there has to be an annual evaluation, because this is a civil case. You can't just lock him up and throw away the key. It doesn't work that way.
Has the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Kevin Coe is a sexually violent predator? Answer, yes.
In your 2008 ruling, you found probable cause that he had a mental abnormality or personality disorder that made him likely to reoffend if released. That was your ruling. That's how we ended up staying in McNeil. Your insight, bigger picture for anybody that's listening on that.
Yes, they have to find. It's uncontested that he had a conviction, so that's easy. But they had to find that he had a mental or personality disorder, and they had to find that as a result of that mental or personality disorder, he could commit further acts, and he's a danger to the community.
This case specifically, it changed Spokane somewhat. How do you view it now, many years removed from the civil commitment hearing and him ending up in McNeil and where we're at today in the legal system? How do you view this case overall?
Well, I don't think there's any question that for those of us who lived here at the time, it had a significant impact.
Regardless what happens in this upcoming hearing, has justice been served in this case, in your view?
Bottom line is that the evidence supporting the juror's verdict was overwhelming.
Coe's hearing is this Thursday, and specifically they'll talk about the threshold, whether he is likely to reoffend. The big question is, why now? Well, here's the answer. There's a 236-page document by state experts explaining Kevin Coe, in their view, is unlikely to reoffend based on his age and declining mental health. Doctors evaluated him and said he does not fit the criteria as a sexually violent predator as described under current law. For insight, here's a WSU professor who's an expert in sexual violence. Here's Bradley Warren.
So my area of specialty is sexual violence in terms of understanding offenders, how they make their decision to recidivate or not, and kind of crime scene investigation.
Explain to me, the decision right now is potentially to release him. For someone who's going, how could that even be considered? What does the data show?
So we know that as people age, they're less likely to commit crime. And we know that's true for sex offenders, generally, So there was a 2012 study that, really looked at those that were over 60 years old, and they found that they were overestimating the risk of recidivism in those cases.
So let's say with the Coe case, when you look at the data, you look at the case, what do you think?
I think his risk level has definitely decreased.
If he was 10 years younger, they were looking at potentially releasing him. The threat level would be higher.
It would, definitely, yes. And I do think his health status is also involved here in this determination as well.
What do you think is really leading officials to make the decision for this? I know that Seattle Times report indicates that the cost of keeping him behind bars is quite expensive. Is this a factor?
I would say probably, right? So it seems like he's needing more health care right now than any other type of care. So I would consider this being a factor here that's being considered. I think from what I read, he refused to participate in sex offending treatment when he was over at McNeil Island. So there are definitely some clues that would say that just, mentally, is he truly rehabilitated?
Probably not.
Yes.
But because of his health condition, failing health condition, and perhaps the cost that it takes to keep him behind bars, the state might be more pro to release him.
That is possible. And it's also the possibility that due to his health condition, there's simply no more opportunity for him to engage in the type of crime that he might have a proclivity for.
Those are some of the key psychological points that will be examined this Thursday at the hearing under a legal microscope. When we come back, the overarching impact and the fear it caused for so many years here in Spokane.
The potential release of the South Hill Rapist. Coverage will continue in a moment.
This is such a tough topic for so many, and so many of you in similar crimes of sexual assault and violent attacks. There's an extensive list of resources at NonStopLocal.com. For all of our crew reporting on this story that has affected so many for so long, we say goodnight. But as we leave you, here are some of those impacted the most in their own words.
I think it's really important just to let people know that you can get through something like this, definitely.
Well, we're hopeful that we'll find a jury that has not been biased or prejudiced by any of the pre-trial and post-trial publicity.
We're going to appeal it again, we're going to try the case again, and we're going to win it next time.
I spent the day at the public safety building shortly before the verdict was announced, and I tell you, you could have cut the tension with a knife.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kevin Coe, guilty of the crime of rape in the first degree.
Kevin Coe, the man accused of being Spokane's South Hill Rapist, has been convicted of committing some of those terrible crimes. He has once again been removed from society. He's back behind bars, and once again he must ponder his own fate as he awaits his sentencing.
I was hoping they'd find him guilty. I really believe he was. That's great.
Well, I'm glad it happened that way.
And I'm very pleased with the verdict.
I think it's a just decision.
I just wanted to thank Spokane. I just love the town of Spokane, and I love the people, and I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks for supporting us. I think we all felt like we had a whole town behind us. This is almost over with, and let's just live a good life. Jeez, I wanted to say that for so long.
Are you fully confident, though, that you will be getting out someday, sooner or later?
Oh, yeah, I always have been, and so have my lawyers. There's no question about it. We were dumbfounded that I'm back here again.
A number of those convictions were thrown out because the alleged victims had been hypnotized, and that was the problem. There was one conviction that withstood all of the trials, all the criminal trials, and that's the conviction that ultimately he served the maximum on, was that conviction.
I'm very religious, and I believe that God has things happen to you for a reason. And I was God's tool to get this man off the street, to get him out of society.
You can continue tracking coverage on the Coe case by scanning this QR code and viewing on demand on NonStop Local Pulse.